Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you will hear part one of my conversation with Abe Reshad, Director of Language Technology and Academic Support at Oberlin College and Conservatory. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. My guest today is Abe Reshad, Director of Language Technology and Academic Support at Oberlin College and Conservatory. Hi, Abe.
Hi, Jeff. Pleasure to be here.
Well, welcome, and I am so glad to be talking to you. We've worked together for a little while now. I think that we actually met in the very beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. We were
In
like
fact,
neck deep in that pandemic.
yeah, and you and your colleagues at Oberlin were at the time. It was literally, I think, my first email. Maybe my first meeting was in March of 2020. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh my
It was
gosh.
literally like I think we were all like meeting, but not sure like what the world is going to be, whether the world is going to exist in the next 60 days,
I know
right?
we're planning for this, but let's see. I'm not sure.
and I and it would be it would be great, it would be it's great now to look back into all of that, but really we didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And of course at the time, your colleague Tanya Boster,
Okay.
executive director of integrative and experiential learning, maybe.
Oh, very close. That's pretty much what it is. Our acronym is CELA, Center for Engaged Liberal Arts.
Okay. And we were she has since moved on to, she's at Princeton
Right.
now, and you all have created a just beautiful ePortfolio project program at Oberlin. It's just been amazing to see this journey, especially born in
Right.
the pandemic. It's a pandemic baby.
It is a pandemic baby and it keeps on growing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been quite amazing for sure. And we started big. I think like the timing was great because, we one big part was of this project started with 300 or 400 students in January of 2021, and we were still neck deep in the pandemic. And that just gave us like an online medium to engage with our students. And so, but then also the portfolio pedagogy, but like just having that as an option during this really tricky time was quite amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll definitely go into that. But first, I wanted to maybe learn a little bit more about you,
Sure.
Abe. I mean, we've worked together for a while now, and I actually didn't even realize that your title until
I
today,
know.
Director of Language Technology and Academic
Yeah.
Support. Um,
It used to be a longer title too. It
is
was
that
like
right?
I
So,
would get
so
responses from my colleagues being like, "Congratulations on having the longest title ever." Because a lot of these staff
uh-huh.
positions and professional positions are they're playing like, specialists, but really we're generalists.
Mhm.
We have a lot of hats going on and but anyways, and so they're trying to create a title that encapsulates everything that
Everything
I
that you do, right? It's more like your job description at this point.
I know, right? It's like, here's his job description. It's like a CV.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at Oberlin? I mean, Oberlin is what an amazing college. I've
Right.
just been amazed to see what you all do, and your dedication to your students, and the level of support you provide. It's just
Right.
pretty unbelievable. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your role and the kind of work that you do? I think it'd be great for our listeners to also
Right.
get a sense of, what goes behind the scene.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I started here, and I'm not gonna, it's not gonna be a long explanation. I want to keep it short. but started as a language lab director, and I still carry that role. And the lab is more of kind of a digital makerspace type, but we also have like 3D printers. And so like supporting students as they're using the green screen, which I'm in right now, or audio, recording booth where they're kind of creating these artifacts for their for language classes or any presentation. Anyone can use the space. And then I also direct the digital portfolio office, which is also kind of a sort of digital maker space where people are kind of uploading and curating their content and kind of, the project is their life in this case, right? So definitely the hats kind of work well together, I think, kind of coming along students and faculty with these types of projects and kind of support them in that.
There's something that I still just I love. You were talking about a language lab, and
Right.
I must say that I didn't know anything about a language lab because
Yeah.
I didn't, I was never in one. I never used one.
Yeah.
So what does a language lab do?
Well, that's a really interesting question because it's such a transition right now. Like, because like language labs used to be a space where students and teachers would be able to access authentic language content, and so you'd have, and so and this happened for a while. I think like from the late '70s to the early 2000s, where you like get a tape or a CD or a computer, and you're listening to these conversations or watching maybe any media that's associated with a language outcome. And also giving you kind of like the point also with the technology was to kind of mediate some sort of like authentic experience to really kind of pull them in. But right now, it's changed a lot, really just kind of evolving with the time because um, because a lot of the textbooks now offer that media as kind of part of a suite. And so like, for example, any like language textbook for its weight will have like a mini learner management system, like associated. So like students can drill and kind of practice and then give them immediate feedback. And so it's almost like a portable language lab that everyone gets in a textbook. So we have to change with the times, right? And so and I think this is kind of the trend. If colleges if they choose to keep the lab, it becomes like kind of a modular learning space, or even a maker space. And that's we have both here. We have like furniture on wheels. It's supposed to be a space where students can kind of take ownership of and kind of move things around to kind of fit whatever programming or even kind of a study session. But then also like creating content. So not being the consumer of it, but being the creator of their presentation, whether it be kind of a role play in like a green screen room in a background, putting them in like Paris, France, or Toledo, Spain, and then that type of kind of engagement as well. So yeah, that's kind of what our language lab is, at least now. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see where we go from here.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because various tools, learning tools, and sometimes these tools exist as places or as
Right.
different functions. They morph and evolve over time, right? I mean,
Mhm.
when you talk about the way that people used to use media, recorded media on CD tapes, DVDs,
Right.
Betamax, whatever it might
Yeah.
be, it's a little bit like like a way to deliver experiential learning to
Right.
people, right? It's a way to also when they're producing their own content, it's
Right.
kind of their way of doing project-based learning. So it to me like something like a language lab is like the beginning or like that those are the intents,
Right.
but language became a really big thing, whether it be a speech given by someone at a specific time and place in this language or another language, and letting that be almost like it allows you to transform yourself through time and space, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of dimension there where you kind of when you almost take on different characteristics of that target language, or you kind of
Yeah.
imagine yourself in that context, and perhaps you take on different, I don't know, aspects, maybe personality aspects of that, so interesting.
Well, you certainly have taken on all of the pedagogical, you extracted the pedagogy out of the way that people used to use a language lab and turn it into something different today, and I think that's really beautiful. I still remember that very first, I think it was that spring of 2021, right?
Right.
And I still remember, I think you were all trying to figure out how to deal with the pandemic,
Mhm.
but also at the same time trying to, I think we all had calmed down a little bit by then,
Yeah.
just to at least know that, well, we're still here,
Mhm.
like we haven't gone away,
Right.
and but you were. I still remember some of the things that you were trying to do were extremely ambitious. You were, during that spring semester, you were having students do this this project where they were building portfolios that are talking about big issues in the
Right.
world.
Right.
um, and you want to talk a little bit about that? It was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
and so
Yeah.
that was our Healing Democracy series, and it was kind of a neat way to do the portfolios where um, the and these were students that were interested in coming to Oberlin and but weren't quite yet students, and so this is a way of kind of providing that engagement and giving them the type of experience that they would have. And the theme was healing democracy, and I'm just kind of and like the students, we'd have a like a pal, a peer, like a peer leader, basically, kind of lead and kind of facilitate conversations with the students. They would be reading articles on the subject, and then they would be sending the posts, and then they would be featuring the posts on a digital portfolio, kind of like a shared blog in the way.
Mhm.
And it was a great way to keep the interactivity going and during this time and allow them kind of engage. And that's something we still do today. Even though, I mean, an Oberlin student or a prospective student can come and visit the campus, and we do
Mhm.
have those campus tours. It's called All Roads. Everyone comes in April, but like they still do that type of interaction, and because it's so fruitful to have that kind of asynchronous type of thing and to give them that type of experience. So yeah, it was pretty good, and we still do it.
I think that is just so cool because I mean, you were all so creative, and you were like, "Oh, can we use it for this and for that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go for it." I
Yeah,
mean, and
I was
especially during the pandemic, it was like, everyone's just like trying their best to be creative, and you were all like really just hitting it out of the park.
yeah, that's one thing I've appreciated being at Oberlin is how when you know when certain contexts happen, when history's kind of changing around them, people are my colleagues, faculty, staff, they're sensitive to it, and they want to leverage their knowledge and understanding and make the connections and make the students see those connections and bring it to them. And usually it's really interesting, when you talk about, like, for example, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Let's think about this in different contexts. Let's bring it to them. Let's have a conversation about it. And those are really popular classes. But it's just great that they really, that's kind of the space that they have here. So I've really appreciated that as being
Yeah.
here.
Well, I remember seeing some of the student portfolios as well. I mean, you were not shy of basically throwing the students into studying and researching and having an opinion about the biggest topics and that that
Right.
that we have in the world today.
Right.
Right? I remember seeing students and hearing about them talking about, like you said, democracy, right?
Right.
But also climate change, but also you know, um, issues of racism, issues of all kinds of issues
Right.
that they try to address, and it really, to me, is an incredible demonstration of what um, a an authentic, perhaps sort of the real sort of crux of what a liberal arts education really can provide. It's the centering of the students and giving them these sort of really foundational core values,
Yeah.
not just giving it to them,
Right.
having them through experiential learning and project-based learning
Right.
that allows them to discover these things and own them.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that. That was a great way of putting it. It really is. And we started that. That was the 2021 experiment.
Mhm.
But like really, engaging the whole person, tugging at the heart at everything that they do. And yeah,
So did you see any difference, with students going through that versus, not?
what versus other institutions? It's a really good question. Um, you know, it's interesting. I think with this, it's hard to answer that question. I'm not sure. I do think that the conversation and topic does pull me in. And so being a part of that type of conversation makes me feel proud to be a part of this,
Yeah, sure.
of what we're trying to give our students and what kind of goals and, things like that. I mean, so I think from, I guess like from a perspective of being a part of a certain mission, I find it really satisfying for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of the difference of students, I think it's the fact that we're just talking about it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it makes a huge difference in how that kind of shapes the context that you work and the educational context. So yeah, so I guess I'm not entirely sure about the students, but like in terms of my interactions with them,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, it's been a difference.
You know what's interesting as you just said that? I too think that, working on something that is mission driven is, can set a huge difference. I think that over the pandemic, especially at the end of the pandemic, we see all of the great resignation and,
Yeah,
and all of that. It really, it has a lot to, it's a reflection of how important that mission is.
right.
And of course it's more engaging when it, what you're trying to work on, it's something that you believe in. But you know what I thought was interesting is that I was thinking, by doing these things you are engaging the students, which I think you are,
Uh-huh.
but by having engaged students in these topics, it engages you. So it's a way also to engage your staff and your faculty and everyone around this culture, this, the real sort of institution culture is how you build this,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. And I do think that, and then pulling everyone in and thinking it is that this is our mission, this is our goal. And no matter what, I mean, if you work at a university to some level, you are a leader, you're an example to the students. And so, like, kind of bringing that and giving everyone, no matter what you do, a sense
Yeah.
of ownership over that is huge.
Now Oberlin students are, I know that they do very brilliant things. um, they they can be incredibly diverse going out, after they finish the undergraduate degree in Oberlin. They could go to, any fields really, and many of them go to, additional, advanced degrees and whatnot. um, One of the things that I I would love to see is to see the difference, or to see the impact that you have on them by bringing them through the paces of, basically, look, you are able to solve big problems, and you expose them to those big problems.
Right.
And I think that could be a, you know like one of those things that 30 years down the road, we are
But
going to see the really big difference. Because, like in the beginning, they're just, the differences is a couple of degrees of difference from each other,
and then
or from another group that didn't have that experience. But
right.
if you look at your ship sailing for 30 years, 2 degrees off could put you in a completely different planet,
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. And then
And
like I mean, it really
yeah.
doesn't matter like how students are being what are they being exposed to in this environment? Because that does I don't like the metaphor trickle down economically,
Yeah.
but I think it does
Right.
trickle down,
Yeah.
I think it does trickle down in terms of like who they become as human beings in that, position, whether it be like a big CEO or something else that, where they're asked to be an example to other people. Uh,
Mhm.
and that shapes their approach. Absolutely.
And I would argue that there's something more too. I mean, sometimes people, I mean, these days they look a lot at, the value of higher education as measured by, monetary terms oftentimes, like, are you going to make your money back from the
Yeah.
tuition and student loans and things of that nature? Um, but I think that there is also a whole other set of metrics that as a parent, I have 5 children, and as a parent, that I wish obviously all of them well, but really, the kind of happiness and maybe fulfillment, a feeling of being fulfilled,
Yeah.
um, is and the ability to relate to each other, to the other people, to contribute to society, um,
Yeah.
and to have a sense of being someone who by existing in this world, they made everyone around them better and the
Right.
environment better. These are, to me, now seem much more important than, are they going to get earning salary at this range, or or get
Oh
a
yeah.
title of some sort. um, I don't know. I think that I don't know if it's just me, but
Oh yeah.
I
No,
think a lot of this current generation of people are, younger people are. These are the things that they're looking for as well. I mean, they look for money too, I think,
right.
but
I think so. I think that people, everyone wants a certain standard of living, let's say
Mhm.
middle class, but yeah, I mean, in the end, and what I hope for my two kids is like that, you know, the feeling of belongingness, wholeness, and, that community, friendship, those things that are priceless. Uh, yeah.
And those two, to me, it feels like. I mean, look, I think that you guys are onto. It's not like you just started and figuring this out. I mean, you've been doing this for a very long time. But I think that this idea of putting these things um, into such a rich reflective moment, because I think that maybe we should talk about that, because one of the things that you have students do is, I mean, when we should probably talk about like what it means by the students creating these portfolios. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah. So the whole point is metacognition. It's just awareness of what is going on. What are they thinking when they have, primarily with us, and when they have an experience, they're doing an internship and they're thinking about that experience. What emotions, what about their experience in the specific institution? What connections are they making to like the academic classes or personal experiences? And then asking those other questions. Okay, so what? Where do we go from here? Making them. That's the opportunity and the space that we encourage students to use the portfolio. That's their space to reflect, and it's a very in the hopes that they in the end make choices that make sense for them. um, and then also kind of make note of the things that inspire them, that are that might be the foundations for other decisions, maybe change a major, going a different direction. But whatever it is, it's rooted in who they are, and yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. That's what that is.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating. I think that um, an increasing um, amount of focus has been, on this value of higher education almost entirely in sort of this monetary terms.
Right,
But I think that there is, I mean, one of the interesting things I feel like sort of post Google world is that the value of being able to cram a ton of content into your brain becomes slightly less than before. I'm not in the camp that, oh, Google has everything. Yeah, it has everything. So did the library.
right,
But if you don't, you still need to know how to find them and
right,
use them. And sometimes knowing some of these things, allow you to make connections, be, you know, because you know where they are in the first
right,
place. And but I think it is absolutely true though that for us now the confidence of being able to say, well, I haven't heard of this, but I know I can look it
right,
up pretty quickly and I'll get a sense of it, pretty easily and
right, right,
freely. And so um, the idea of just cramming a lot of content into people's heads seems to be slightly less important than it used to be, right?
right.
And
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like gone are it's like, remember that time when it was like if you're competing on Jeopardy, you know,
right,
it's
right,
like
right, right.
that is
Yeah,
this level of achievement. But now
right,
it's like, well, they know a lot about everything, but
yeah,
I can just look it up on Google. You know what I mean?
right, right.
It's
The
like
the
that
value of knowing them is
is yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's sure. It's a great party trick.
Yeah, it's like if you're at a
Yeah,
bar, you're doing like,
yeah,
a Q&A or whatever it is, that's great, but
yeah.
problem
My God, that.
solving oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump
No,
in
go
there.
ahead. Yeah,
But
yeah, and well, I was going to say exactly that. It's then the problem solving part of it that
right,
becomes more important. And the idea of having students have that time and the space to reflect and develop
right,
sort of ideas and sort of soak in their own experiences also, just to
right.
just let it marinate so that they can figure out what they want to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when we talk about problem solving and kind of things marinating and, it makes me think of, one of my winter term projects, which is a 3D printing course, which is also a portfolio. And I feel like that's like making is a really good context to think about a good way to interact with the world. Because, when you're making your own thing, your object, you're 3D printing something, you've come up with a design and you're implementing it, you get that immediate feedback and you have this problem you have to interact with and chew on. You try again, you mess up again. And it's a really rich type of experience. I almost wish life gave that type of feedback so quick so you could
Mhm.
actually kind of go through it. But it's like, it really is kind of a microcosm of what we're trying to do with portfolios, but in like a really short period of time.
I really want to get into this. Okay, we need to get into some of the details of this 3D printing part
Oh,
of this. So you had mentioned it a couple of times. Now, first of all, let me just say that I am gonna assume that I'm not the only one who's intrigued but also confused that how did this learning, I mean, I'm sorry, this language
right.
technology get into 3D printing, and how does that how does that work? Why does your language lab have 3D printers?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, that's the
Yep.
$1 million question, right? With language learning, I mean, we can print letters, but but like, but really, it is about like printing artifacts, and
Mhm.
so printing like cultural artifacts. In the classics, that's a really low hanging fruit. So you're printing
Mm,
scans of ancient relics and
mhm,
bringing them and kind of making that part of kind of a class experience. That's happened a couple times here, or an exhibit. So a lot of
mm,
times I'll have students who are trying to. One recent project was making a more acceptable, not acceptable, but accessible exhibit
mhm,
for the other abled, and so like making scans and printing these objects so they can be more interactive, and have that kind of textured type of experience
mhm,
from the audience. And but then it's not just that. Like it can be in terms of a regular language classroom. When you're thinking of like in a game context where you're trying to kind of get students to really get in there and interact in the target language. It's having a trophy there, so customizing a trophy for your classroom, and so they can kind of win it. Um, or it could be like it could be a prop for a classroom activity or for a student's presentation, where there's, uh, you know, and well, one example is also of like one class like East Asian religious objects. They're studying all these religious objects, and there is like an initiative to scan these objects because a lot of these objects are in war-torn areas, but also they're thousands of years old. So
mhm.
they're an earthquake or war away from being destroyed, and so they have this archive of all these objects that you can print. Um, and and so one collaboration was, okay, so let's bring these objects to the classroom, and instead of just reading about them, you choose an object, we'll print it, and we'll teach you about the process as well. And then you have this object to kind of commune with in your own way, whatever that is, whether it just is in your space, or what.
I think that is just so amazing. I mean, you again have, like you're blowing my mind, by the way. So this idea of, you know, um, I guess that what used to be being able to take a recording of someone's speech, let's say, into a
Right.
language lab, you're able to sort of replicate that, but in for objects and
Right.
things. I think that's really amazing. This concludes part one of our conversation. To hear part two, be sure to subscribe to Digication Scholars Conversations on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Digication Scholars Conversations is brought to you by Digication, a technology platform powering the most innovative ePortfolio programs in K 12 and higher education. Our website can be found at digication.com. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks for tuning in.